The latest survey was conducted in the middle of April, and I think, according to exit polling in previous elections, there are almost around 30 to 40% who decides at the last stage of the campaign. So I think it's not a foregone conclusion because surveys only reveal voting intentions, and this particular campaign has been fast evolving day by day. So I wouldn't count the other candidates, particularly the second place candidate, out of the race yet.
Now, Bongbong is the son of Ferdinand Marcos Sr., a dictator who was famously toppled from power and forced into exile with his family. Talk us through how the Marcos family name still holds such massive influence in the Philippines, despite all that controversy that surrounds it.
There's a combination of factors. First, the Marcoses were allowed to accumulate power over time. It just so happens that they have become more prominent in the past couple of years, but the Marcoses have been gradually building their political base. This is why Bongbong Marcos did not run for president, even if he has the popularity in 2010 or 2016. The second factor is Duterte himself. He has fostered the conditions conducive to populist, authoritarian, and strongman rule that made the Marcos brand name attractive. And finally, it's the massive disinformation infrastructure that was built by the coalition between Duterte and Marcos that somehow was successful to a certain extent in revising the dark years of martial law in the minds of many ordinary Filipinos.
Now, meanwhile, the closest rival, Leni Robredo, has secured some pretty big endorsements herself, and she's managed to get some pretty big turnouts at her rallies as well. Some analysts believe that the latest polls may not reflect how much support she actually has. What's your take on that?
Right. I think in this particular campaign, surveys no longer occupy or monopolize the ability to somehow give us a glimpse of possible electoral outcomes. There are other metrics like, for example, Google Trends or trends in Wikipedia, wherein we actually see an opposite situation. Leni Robredo is actually leading, and Marcos is trailing behind in Google Trends, for example. And we know that Google Trends have predicted elections in other countries.
Now, Robredo has been pushing for a debate with Marcos, who has been refusing. Some say that while Marcos is at home in front of crowds and at rallies, he wouldn't do particularly well in a one-on-one setting, whether it's a debate or a media appearance. Are they right?
Yes, because in the past, we know that this presidential contest is a rematch of the vice presidential contest between Marcos and Robredo in 2016. And there have been insinuations that Marcos didn't really do well in the debates, was actually traumatized with how he was treated by other vice presidential candidates. And for sure, if he participated in major presidential debates with the other contenders, that would be the scenario. But campaign rallies don't really give us the ability to critically examine what Marcos Jr. has been offering, and that has been lacking in his campaign.
Now, Marcos's running mate is Sara Duterte Carpio, the daughter of outgoing President Rodrigo Duterte. What will it mean for the Philippines if this duo is elected, these two big names, these two big political dynasties?
So we're talking about, I think, the most formidable dynastic alliance ever in Philippine contemporary politics, because we're talking about two offsprings of two strong men or two populist authoritarian leaders, Ferdinand Marcos Sr. and Rodrigo Duterte. I call this a cartel of dynasties. And this is why this elections is important, because we're not just talking about the next 6 years, the next term of a presidency. We might actually be talking the consolidation of this dynasty cartel in its grip on Philippine politics beyond 6 years and possibly for a very long time.
Now, is Rodrigo Duterte likely to remain in the mix given his daughter's position?
Well, Rodrigo Duterte has said that he will retire silently, and he actually has not formally endorsed any candidate for the presidency, something that has surprised many, given that his daughter is running with Marcos Jr. However, I wouldn't count Rodrigo Duterte out because he has political interests to protect beyond his term. And in the Philippines, former presidents have landed themselves in jail and were incarcerated. So we will have to see.
Some very interesting times ahead. Aries Arugay, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.